People who have been used to having an advantage in our culture are in full fear, and so they're lashing out at us because we are having a good old time living our life, and they can't stand it. But let me tell you, nothing is more powerful than a registered vote. Fascism is back. Yay! Only thing we can do, our only comeuppance, is to party.
We are running out of time. The wolf is at our door. After years of warnings, false starts, and failed attempts at containment, the worst people in the world have succeeded in getting what they want. Some still refuse to believe the truth before their eyes, but no matter how long they try to ignore our new reality, eventually, after their neighbours, their friends, their family, eventually, the monsters of history reborn will come for them. Fascism is here. And according to the drag queen par excellence, RuPaul's, the only thing we can do about this intolerable reality to ensure the gains we've made for queer people over the last 50 years were not in vain is to party. This video is sponsored by Bellessa. Click on the link below to take part in my Bellessa giveaway. Everyone that does so will get a free toy or a gift card for a toy, and I do mean everyone. So, this Pride Month, remember that not only are you worthy and gorgeous, but that you deserve to love yourself. And I do mean that in both senses of the word. If you feel like you could do with learning to love yourself, you could go to Bellessa's website right now and check out their LGBTQ+ collection, curated to celebrate everybody, every identity, and every kind of desire. After all, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else? If you're interested in that sort of thing, you could try, for example, the Air Max, a suction device designed to cover more surface area than other models, making it suitable for a wider range of bodies. There's also the Air Vibe Pro, back by popular demand, and with improved controls, stronger vibrations, quieter performance, longer battery life, and remote control functionality. There's also the Halo 2, not to be mistaken for the video game, which is perfect for couples and offers a discreet experience that increases the stamina of the wearer and does the non-wearer a whole lot of good too. So, if you plan on learning the true meaning of self-love this Pride Month, check out Bellessa and my giveaway using the link below to get free toys or gift cards for toys today.
The other lyrics are, oh right, money, 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 money.
Good evening and happy Pride Month, party people, and by that I mean those here to party and those who are obviously watching us all from the back with their rifles pointing at our backs, waiting to see if we step out of line or say anything disrespectful about obviously the greatest man in the history of the planet, and a man who was definitely not gay himself, Donald J. Trump.
And I could come down and start kissing everybody. I'll kiss every guy, man and woman, man and woman. Look at that guy, how handsome he is. I'll kiss him.
Young, handsome guy.
He's a massive guy. This big, powerful guy. Big guy.
Big guy.
Big guy.
He's your big guy in town, folks.
Big guy. Strong, tough. Strong man, big, tough guy.
This is a big, tough guy.
Listen, if you get something happening that you cannot resist and that it's going to make you happy, go for it.
If my paperwork passed inspection with the ICE agent currently confiscating all of my documentation, am still your humble host and science and culture correspondent for the Daily Telegraph, Brigitte Empire. You see, while real newspapers are being closely watched or subject to hostile takeovers by the current extremely normal and respectable people in charge of the United States right now, write down that I said this, we over at the Daily Telegraph have the advantage of being 1, British, and 2, not real, and thus it falls to us to pick up the mantle of journalism and investigative reporting from the rotting corpse of CBS News and The Guardian. Today, we are not here, however, to disrupt the totally cool and fine people in power who definitely are not watching me right this very second, but to talk about the questionable political advice given by famous drag queen,
A drag queen?
fracking enthusiast,
Oh, the fracking?
No, not that.
Oh,
and fascist bookstore owner RuPaul Charles.
CEO of RuPaul's bookstore apologizes for carrying anti-LGBTQ+ extremists' books.
What does RuPaul think about what is to be done in a time where the world is racing towards a complete fascist takeover, which will certainly destroy me, him, and everyone both of us care about? Well, in some ways, RuPaul is a little bit of a doomer. In some ways, he has a bit of a point. And in many other ways, his advice is unhelpful and actively dissuading his millions of fans from taking the urgent action needed to fight back. So, before I get into the reasons why I think these things, and what he should have done differently, let's hear the star of Stop That Train, coming soon to a theatre near you, in full. Right now.
Okay, there is no easy fix. We are talking 45 years of undereducation in this country when they started defunding educational programs in schools and everything. So when you talk about rational thinking or critical thinking, who would you be talking to? Because most of the population don't know how to do that. They weren't taught how to do that. They believe in superstition and fairy tales. So the bad guys win. They won. You know, fascism is back. Yay! I mean, at this point, the only thing we can do, our only comeuppance, is to party and dance and have fun and laugh and let's play games because they got what they wanted, man. They got it. Well, they got it. So I'm going to be dancing. I'm going to be having some fun. Join me.
Well, that was some interesting advice on how to live life as a queer person in a world under increasingly terrifying and pseudo-Hitlerian rule. It's advice that you might expect from a millionaire whose cousin is spineless Democrat Cory Booker, pictured here holding hands with some very normal people who I'm sure haven't violated any international laws whatsoever. It is advice that someone who approved fracking on their land despite claiming to care about climate change might give. Things are horrible, but what can you do? It's over. They've won. All we can do is dance and party and keep being ourselves, goddammit.
Liberal.
It is true that when you are ruled by people who would really love an excuse to put all queer people in some kind of enclosed space with large watchtowers forever, that it is important not to give in to these demands, not to go back into the closet, and not to hide who you are in fear of repercussions. The idea that this is the extent of what any of us should be doing in the face of this unfathomable evil, however, is, well, cowardly at best. You don't want to give up what you have. Okay, that's a start. But this also shapes the limits of what you can envision as a path forward. You don't want to risk your safety by doing anything more. But the alternative is the fascist you warn about winning, and things getting worse and worse until eventually you cannot dance, you cannot party. Once they've come for the immigrants, once they've come for the Palestinians, once they've come for the Muslims, once they've come for the trans people, then they will come for people like RuPaul Charles. Or people like RuPaul Charles who aren't rich. No matter how proudly and how visibly you dance to stop that sequence of events, to learn the lessons of history, you need to do much, much more.
Former employees and artists in the DC region are dancing in protest today.
But before we get to that, there are probably a small number of you still somehow unaware of who this bespectacled female impersonator is, and I'm not talking about myself. So, let me give you a quick introduction to RuPaul Charles. why his voice and how he uses it matters, and why it's imperative that people with his history, influence, and profile change their positions from keep doing what you're doing no matter how much they beg you to stop, to organize and fight back. RuPaul Andre Charles is, obviously, the host and star of RuPaul's Drag Race, a reality TV mega franchise that's seen spin-offs in countries throughout the world, in which a bunch of drag queens compete to impress him and be crowned America, or whichever country it is, next drag superstar. Despite his current persona as showrunner, rainbow capitalist, and fracker, despite whatever good intentions he might have that contradict with the lifestyle he's built for himself, taking drag from a subversive and underground art form into a $1 million industry, RuPaul actually has pretty humble beginnings, and was, once upon a time, involved in Atlanta's local punk scene, and was, despite how he looks in drag now, more of a club kid back in the 80s New York club scene. The club kids, for those of you who don't know, were known for their bizarre and out-of-the-box but still incredibly artistic looks and their general gender falconry.
Oh, I'm just being out and being wonderfully glamorous, that's all.
What I'm trying to get at by zooming in on the more punk, DIY, transgressive, and politically conscious scenes RuPaul emerged from, not least growing up as a black man from a broken home, born 4 years before the Civil Rights Act, or being openly gay and a drag queen during the height of the AIDS crisis, is that RuPaul has seen what political struggle looks like firsthand. He knows what his community did in the face of seemingly insurmountable adversity. So, when he suggests that there is nothing you can do but keep being yourself, he is not being entirely honest. He knows what organizations like ACT UP did, for example. He grew up only a short time after the civil rights struggle and was 8 years old when the Stonewall riots were raging on the streets of New York. There are things he could be advising his audience of millions to do that would help. Things that the people he rubs shoulders with, is in business with, and shares class interests with, in his new life as the person who made drag into a product on the mass market, probably would find extremely scary.
We're here because this government has the resources to deal with the AIDS epidemic, and they won't do it unless we force them. So we're trying to force them to deal with the AIDS epidemic.
One thing we've found historically in the gay movement, and also in particular in the fight against AIDS, is when we're activists, when we really act up, we have a big impact, and we get what we're demanding, and when we're silent, we don't.
You see, I think that there are two sides to RuPaul. There is the RuPaul that first and foremost is queer, a drag queen, an openly gay man staunchly dedicated to advancing rights for his community and keeping those who would take them away out of power. And then there is RuPaul the businessman, the one who advised on Drag Race that the best deals are made on the golf course, the man who approved fracking on his land, the man who saw an expression of art and joy and subversiveness in his community and decided to effectively turn himself into that art form CEO and use it to exploit those that brought joy to him to extract a massive profit. This isn't an insult to RuPaul, this is just a description of what it means to turn any art form into $1 million industry. It might sound like it's bad, but that's because extraction of profit under capitalism is inherently exploitative. I imagine that he feels himself conflicted about this, that these two personas are at odds in his mind and in the way that he acts. And I say this because he isn't very consistent at all in the way that he uses his platform, the way he lifts or doesn't lift certain queer communities up, or with the political message he wants to send at any given moment. His political messages are, despite them being semi-regular, usually vague calls to vote Democrat or just vote in general. The kind of comments any rich liberal might make about the Trump administration, for example. The horizon of what is possible in the world of politics is, as you might imagine by his political advice being either vote or there's nothing left for me to do but dance, very narrow. But RuPaul the activist, RuPaul the drag queen, RuPaul the punk knows better than this. And what seems to happen as a result of this is that RuPaul is aware of the suffering, of the discrimination that's happening, and is aware of the urgency of the current moment. But he has closed himself off to all possible mechanisms to change it. Because the only political action that does not disrupt any of the well-oiled machinery of capital is what it already permits. That being protests coordinated with police, who do or say nothing, stand perfectly still, leave quickly, and don't make a fuss when those same police attack them, or the humble vote once every few years. And when those options are used up, there's nothing left. And what you're left with there is doomerism.
I could calculate your chances of survival, but you won't like it.
The idea that the reaction to fascism winning in America can only be met by continuing to live as if it is not there is inherently doomerism. The world does not stop moving when the enemy wins. This isn't a video game, and this isn't a Marvel movie where you kill the big bad guy and everything else dies off. When they win, they keep making moves. This attitude only really makes sense if you believe that the world as it is truly at an end and there is nothing you can do. Like, climate doomers don't believe that there is anything we can do to stop climate change, so why bother? As if, even if it were extremely unlikely that we could change it, we shouldn't at least try to ensure that the one planet we all live on is, livable. Come to think of it, that would explain the fracking. The thing is, you only get to this point by accepting the framing of those who are advancing the causes that you are supposedly fighting against. The people in charge would love you to believe that you can do nothing to stop them, that voting is the only action people can physically take. The fossil fuel giants would love you to believe that you shouldn't be pushing for green energy, that you shouldn't be pushing to leave oil just in the ground, and that you shouldn't hold them accountable for literally colluding to destroy the planet. They would love you to believe that there is no stopping them, that you might as well let them keep going, soaking up more money than God every year through the process of rendering the very Earth itself uninhabitable, and thereby murdering every living thing that lives on its surface. And it makes sense that RuPaul might have accepted the framing of those in charge, because he runs in their circles. Whether he would admit it or not, he has a vested interest in the current order, and is incentivized by his current class to discourage any changes to that order. The rich, for the most part, unlike the rest of us, have a strong form of class consciousness. They know how precarious their position would be in if enough people below them decided that they do not deserve to be in said position. And, if we're being honest, they don't deserve to be there, do they? And there are things that we can do about it. Doomerism isn't the answer. Hell, even if everything were hopeless, would it not be better to at least try to do something, rather than just walking straight over to the firing squad? Do you know what RuPaul's community did while RuPaul was part of that community? Part of the scene? Where he could potentially join? Where he could watch which tactics worked and which didn't, and take note for later moments like this? When the government left RuPaul and RuPaul's entire community to die, they got organized and they fought back.
How deeply are Americans worried about AIDS? A Los Angeles Times poll found that 50% of Americans favor quarantine for AIDS victims. 48% said they should be issued special identification. 15% said AIDS victims should be tattooed.
People felt that lives depended on them. It was real. People were driven to do something.
I want to show the reality of my death, to display my body in public. We are not just spiraling statistics. We are people who have lives, who have purpose, who have lovers, friends, and families. And we are dying of a disease maintained by a degree of criminal neglect so enormous that it amounts to...
Change the definition!
If I had $1 to spend for healthcare, I'd rather spend it on a baby or innocent person with some defect or illness, not of their own responsibility. Not some person with AIDS, says the healthcare official on national television. And this is in the middle of an hour-long video of people dying on camera because they can't afford the limited drugs available that might extend their lives, and I can't even remember what this official looked like because I reached in through the TV screen and ripped his face in half, and I was diagnosed with AIDS recently, and this was after the last few years of losing count of the friends and neighbours who have been dying slow and vicious and unnecessary deaths because and junkies are expendable in this country. If you want to stop AIDS, the queers, says the governor of Texas on the radio, and his press secretary later claims that the governor was only joking and didn't know the microphone was turned on, and besides, they didn't think it would hurt his chances for re-election anyways, and I wake up every morning in this killing machine called America, and I'm carrying this rage like a blood-filled egg. And there's a thin line between the inside and the outside. A thin line, and I've been looking all my life at the signs surrounding us, in the media or on people's lips. The religious types outside St. Patrick's Cathedral, shouting to men and women in the gay parade, "You won't be here next year, you'll get AIDS and die, haha!" And the areas of the USA where it is possible to murder a man, and when brought to trial, only has to say that the victim was a queer and that he tried to touch you, and the courts will set you free. There is a thin line, a very thin line, and as each T-cell disappears from my body, it's replaced by 10 pounds of pressure, 10 pounds of rage, and I focus that rage into non-violent resistance. But that focus is starting to slip. My hands are beginning to move independent of self-restraint, and the egg is starting to crack. America seems to understand and accept murder as a self-defense against those who would murder other people, and it's been murder on a daily basis for 8 long years, and we're expected to quietly and politely make house in this windstorm of murder. But I say, there's certain politicians that had better increase their security forces, and there's religious leaders and healthcare officials that had better get bigger dogs and higher fences and more complex security alarms for their homes, and queer bashers better start doing their work from inside howitzer tanks, because the thin line between the inside and the outside is starting to erode. And at the moment, I'm a 37-foot tall, 1,172-pound man inside this 6-foot frame, and all I can feel is the pressure. All I can feel is the pressure and the need for release. Those were the words of David Wojnarowicz at the Drawing Center in New York City in 1992. You can read them in full in the book Moving Politics, Emotions and ACT UP's Fight Against AIDS by Deborah B. Gould. This is the world that ACT UP fought in. This is the backdrop to one of the most drawn-out fights the queer community has ever fought. And yet, the sentiments 40 years later do not sound as alien as they felt when I began reading about ACT UP and the AIDS crisis over a decade ago. But if time seems to be a flat circle, why are the leaders of our community not asking for the same direct action? Why do these feelings sound so familiar? Why does the absurdity of the horrors around us, targeted towards queer and particularly trans people, particularly black trans people, but also to immigrants and brown people being thrown into detention camps, never to be heard from again, most urgently, from endless warring and destruction, ending lives all around the world with no justification and no accountability? For the Palestinians, but for ourselves, we feel a war inside ourselves. We feel it. You know, we know how awful this is. And you can only dance and party so much. When you feel that pressure building up, the need for action when injustice is so prevalent and so all-encompassing, that need for action is felt in our blood. And soon, releasing that pressure will become a biological imperative. How can you, in the face of all of this, just resign yourself to being yourself and dancing all night? If you have an audience of millions, does that pressure not build inside you as well, RuPaul? Do you not feel the attacks on queer clubs, on drag shows? Do you not feel the lives of the trans people we have lost, this epidemic of violence against black and brown trans women? Do you not feel for those forced into the closet and the casket? Do you not feel the souls of those abducted by ICE, those targeted by American and Israeli weapons? Do you not feel the pressure as your blood threatens to erupt from your skin? Seriously, do you not?
We die, they do nothing. We die, they do nothing.
When the AIDS crisis was happening, RuPaul's contemporaries did not just dance. They took matters into their own hands. And Ru knows this. He lived this. In the 1980s, RuPaul was an addict, sleeping on his friends' couches. As his friends dropped like flies from a virus his government did not care to stop. A virus they blamed on the people whose lives it was snuffing out one by one. He lived this life once. He knows how that pressure feels. Is it because he's materially comfortable now that he does not feel it? That he encourages others to ignore it? To dance and have a good time while their friends, their family, their neighbours, their safe places, their community, everything gets torn down around them? Does he forget how his community fought for him and for themselves and for each other to keep everyone safe? They did way more than just dancing. From Gould again. Arguing that confrontational direct action was needed to fight the exploding AIDS crisis, oppositional AIDS activist groups began to emerge in 1986 to 1987 out of lesbian and gay communities in the United States. With cumulative deaths from AIDS-related complications nearing and soon surpassing 20,000 nationally, lesbians and gay men formed direct action AIDS groups in San Francisco, Citizens for Medical Justice, New York, the Lavender Hill Mob, and Chicago, and Gay Men Against Repression, Racism, Reagan, and the Right Wing. ACT UP formed in New York City in March 1987, and other chapters soon sprouted up across the country, quickly forming a national direct action AIDS movement. Over the course of its life, there were over 80 ACT UP chapters in the USA and more than 30 internationally. Through raucous demonstrations, acts of civil disobedience, zaps and disruptions, die-ins, and other forms of street theatre, meetings with government and other officials, and eye-catching agitprop, ACT UP and similar direct action AIDS groups intervened in every aspect of the AIDS epidemic with tremendous effect. People did not give in. They could not give in. They took action. And despite what the attitude of RuPaul to our current crisis would have you believe, organising and direct action can win massive victories. It can today, and it certainly did back then. The movement's profound impact on the course of the epidemic is evident in the long list of victories it secured. ACT UP forced the FDA to speed up the drug approval process and to adopt policies that allowed people with life-threatening illnesses to access experimental drugs prior to approval. The movement's effort reconfigured scientific procedures and thus scientific research itself by securing the inclusion of people with HIV/AIDS in government and corporate AIDS decision-making bodies, allowing affected populations into drug trial design and other aspects of drug research. ACT UP pushed the CDC to expand the definition of AIDS to include infections and diseases commonly occurring in HIV-infected women and poor people. Direct action AIDS activists succeeded in attracting greater attention to the needs of multiple populations with AIDS, including women and people of colour, and won more funding for AIDS research, social services, and safe sex education. ACT UP forced pharmaceutical companies to lower the price of AIDS drugs, insurance companies to reimburse for experimental drugs, pushed government bodies to create needle exchange programs, and prevented the passage of extremely repressive anti-AIDS legislation. Direct action AIDS activists altered public perceptions of people with AIDS, posed a powerful challenge to conventional understandings of homosexuality and sexuality more broadly, gave birth to a new queer generation that shook up straight and gay establishments with defiant, sex-radical politics. ACT UP may not have literally led a revolution, but they demonstrably had a massive impact, putting huge pressure on governments, insurers, and pharmaceutical companies, helping to save so many people's lives and to prevent deaths in the future. And this isn't even to mention how the AIDS crisis was fought in the UK, where queer groups like Lesbians and Gay Support the Minors forged solidarity across disparate communities during dark days for the Labour movement and the queer movement both. Powerful ties were forged between the unions and the LGBT community that remain strong to this day. Just look at how it was the unions, louder than anyone else, speaking up against the new bathroom ban guidance out of the UK recently, and demanding an end to the discrimination against trans people endemic to this country. The interests of the queer community are not separate to class struggle. They overlap, and most queer people are working class. Forging these links between those fighting against those tearing us all down is essential for fighting back. Forget dancing. Think about which other groups are, like queer people, having their documentation and identity denounced and torn up, changed after years of dedication to meet the standards of a society that does not care, who are forced out of public spaces, made to feel unsafe in simple scenarios like needing to use the bathroom or crossing a national border. Who is the government targeting? It's not just us. In fact, despite how acute it all feels right now, they haven't even started coming for us yet. Look at the way our governments treat immigrants, Muslims, black and brown people. They are coming for others even harder right now.
We risk becoming an island of strangers.
Migrants. We'll make off with your children.
Migrants.
And come after them in the night. No. It's a
migrant.
He's got fangs, razor-sharp ones.
We're living in a two-tier culture in this country where the rights and privileges of white people matter less than those of ethnic minorities. But I suggest the rest of us respond to this with pure, cold rage.
No one can stop what is coming!
The bottom line is this: when a federal officer gives you instructions, you abide by them, and then you get to keep your life.
Not humans. They're not humans. They're animals.
So, instead of dancing, we should be trying to help. We should be looking to build solidarity across communities, just like Lesbians and Gay Support the Minors did in 1984 and 1985. We need to learn the lessons of history. By providing an understanding of oppression that highlighted the commonality of experience between mining and lesbian and gay communities, Lesbians and Gay Support the Minors sought to undermine divisions between class and sexuality-based politics. Mistreatment by the police was frequently pointed to as a shared experience. In the mid-1980s, lesbians and gay men faced entrapment by pretty policemen and police raids on their pubs and clubs. In one case, 12 men were arrested inside the Vauxhall Tavern for being drunk. The Bell, a focus for LGSM fundraising, had itself been raided, allegedly by 70 police officers. An LGSM member described how a lot of mining communities have found out what police harassment is for the first time, perhaps, which gay people have known about for years. Andy Beckett has argued that the lower status groups of the early 1970s knew that the British police of the period were hardly social workers in uniform, yet on picket lines, if not police stations, members of powerful trade unions were often protected by the invisible shield of their social standing and connection. Striking miners had certainly faced violence before, but the policing of the 1984 to 1985 strike was more reminiscent of pre-war disputes than of the 1970s, and marked the miners out as a lower status group. Scargill commented, "The police tactics in this dispute have revealed clearly to us what black and Asian communities throughout Britain meant by police harassment." Furthermore, policing of the 1984 to 1985 strike extended beyond the picket lines into communities. One commentator at the time described pit villages occupied by large numbers of the police, who imposed virtual curfews with anyone on the streets liable to harassment and arrest. LGSM's Kate Thomas wrote that the cordoning off of pit villages created the ghetto restrictions familiar to lesbians and gays. Another focus was media representation. Robert Kincaid reported being told by a member of the Delay support group that the working class had not understood the problems of lesbians and gay men because they have been satisfied with what they have read in The Sun. But what we must capitalise on now is that mining families know that The Sun lies. They know that the TV is a lie machine, that they have experienced how it has been used against them as a propaganda agent of the government. So maybe it has lied about everything else in the past as well. Now, despite everything I've just said, and the examples I've provided, I will give RuPaul some credit, in that dancing and partying is not in and of itself a bad idea. When people demand you hide away and return to the closet, or there will be consequences, to continue being yourself, being proud and being loud and being unignorable is by itself an act of defiance. It is a good thing to do. But it's not enough by itself. Yes, you should keep yourself visible. You should make sure the world cannot look away. You should allow yourself to feel authentic and to feel joy, even in the midst of all of the hate and judgment and of everything in the world that insists that you feel shame for being different. But that will not stop the crackdowns. That will not stop the police from coming for you, from stripping you of your rights and protections. That will not stop random unaccountable billionaires from turning the concept of human rights upside down to try and force you into the proverbial wood chipper. And I do think part of the reason that this is even in question is the way that corporations, politicians, and those who are rich and comfortable have attempted to sanitize pride, sanitize the fight for queer rights, sanitize the Stonewall riots, to make it sound like every gain the LGBT community has ever achieved was achieved through kindness and smiles and asking nicely, remembering to say please, and patiently waiting for their turn in history for progress to smile upon them.
Future's now, old man.
When the truth is that every single little thing that we have wrung from the miserly state has been won through direct action, through clashes, through throwing shot glasses and bricks, through riots, through mass die-ins, through facing off against mounted police, through blood and sweat and tears. Pride itself began as a commemoration of the Stonewall riots. As you probably know, and if you don't, you can guess from the name, the Stonewall riots were not a series of queer people shaking hands with the cops and politicians and asking politely to not be jailed for cross-dressing or for gay PDA. No, the police raided the Stonewall Inn, and the drag queens, the trans women, the butch lesbians, the queer community as a whole, many of them black and trans, fought back.
Most Stonewall customers were regularly harassed by the police.
The lights
started flickering on and off. They said, oh, just another raid. They're going after the drag queens. They're throwing insults around. People would start applauding when someone got out. People started saying things to the police as the door would open. And the most vocal and loudest were the drag queens. They had nothing to lose. Everything society could take away from you had already taken away from them. This was their home.
10 years ago or so, I remember the question of whether Pride was a party or a protest came up a lot. Of course, people party at Pride, and yes, we should. We should be allowed to have fun without shame. That's the whole point. To take up space and show that we are who we are, that we are proud queers, and actually have fun for once in our lives. God knows we have enough of all that other stuff. But we also cannot forget that Pride is a protest. If it must be a party, it cannot stop being a protest as well. It must be a protest. That is its most vital component. The fight is not over. Things are getting worse. Much worse. For many of us. So much worse that even the people who previously sought to defang the community, big companies, many of them with much blood on their hands, sticking rainbow flags in their logos and sponsoring Pride, trying to turn the whole event into a giant advertising initiative with no queer participation beyond the colours of brands that do not give a single shit about us, are all pulling back. Rainbow capitalism is over. It's not cool anymore to pretend to care about us. Some cities treat it like a festival, charging a premium for entry to a commemoration of the Stonewall riots and the fight for queer rights, cordoning us off into a fenced area surrounded by police, and watch a stage of safe entertainment. We need to remember to do more than just dance. People are being abducted. People are dying. RuPaul said it. Fascism is here. We cannot accept this. We certainly cannot accept dancing and dancing and dancing until one day they come for us. We should be trying to free the people they've already come for and the people they are coming for next, and prepare ourselves for the fight to come. When monsters have risen to power before, there were always people that chose to plug in their ears and dance. Those are not the people we remember from history, however. The movements we admire, the people who did the work and wrestled the world back from those who would have the dancers' movements be stopped forever. There has always been opposition to monsters. There have always been resistance groups. For as long as fascists have existed, anti-fascists have existed. When the slave trade started, immediately there were abolitionists. Direct action groups, whether queer or black or brown or working class or all of the above and intertwined, have always worked to fight back against oppression and crackdowns. We cannot let this age be the first time that we lay down and invite monsters in to build a gallows for us right before our eyes while we do nothing about it but dance. Do not let this become the new normal. Do not dance quietly into that good night. Rage, rage. Do you not feel that pressure building? Doesn't it feel like it's about to burst? You can use that pressure, you can put that heat, that need into something to invoke the spirit of the Stonewall riots, to invoke the spirit of ACT UP, of LGSM, of the fucking French resistance, of something that will be a thorn in the side of the monsters who have made it their duty to stop us dancing, or even existing. And that doesn't mean that you can't party along the way either, but don't be cowed into believing that that is the only thing you can do. You can do so much more than you, or apparently RuPaul, can realize. Frankly, he can do massive amounts with his money, so I don't know what he's giving up for. He has massive amounts of power. Regardless, do not let yourself be influenced into inaction, even by leaders in the community. Do not let yourself be talked into doomerism, least of all by people who could move mountains if they chose to do so, and who benefit from us taking no action. For the rest of us, we can't move mountains by ourselves, but with enough of us together, we can do all of that, and much, much more. Happy Pride, and thanks for watching. your door, and your hour is at hand. There's a pistol that you keep beside your bed, but you won't be needing that. Tell the union never mind, you won't be seeing them again. Screw solidarity, cause you've got a spring in your step, but we both know how this ends. It ends like, first they came for the communists, but they'll never come for me. By the time that I'll be next on the list, I'll be happy as can be. Fascism's won, but let's party. Now the wolf is in the club, with a rifle in his hand. You're trying to show him how to walk the fucking duck, but he says, well, that's quite enough of that. There's no one to save you now. Everyone that could is dead. And for a moment there, we really thought you won, he said. Before we shoot, we'll say your prayers. What could you say? But first they came for the communists, but they'll never come for me. By the time that I'll be next on the list, I'll be happy as can be. Fascism's won, but let's party. First they came for the communists, who would have thought they'd ever come for me? But by the time that I'd be next on the list, I'd be forever out of reach. But fascism's won, so let's party. They haven't won, they can still set you free. Yeah. Hey, thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe, tell your friends about it, and give it a big fat hype. Hype it up, hype now, hype often. Yeah, I don't know what's happening. Something weird things that happen with this. I know there's more YouTube back and stuff, but things are weird. So please, if you can, help me get out of debt. Please, overdraft still there, unfortunately. Money, coffee, PayPal, links below as always, and also Patreon or YouTube memberships. You can get early videos, uncensored videos, special content, members only Discord, and then Switch friend code, and yes. Also, thing I forgot to mention before, I have a podcast now with Matriarch Type and Swolsome and Soul Bunny and Turb as well, but Turb hasn't turned up yet. We'll get to that. And Turb. And that's called Left Wave Transmission. You can find it. I'll link it below. It's cool. You should listen to it. I'm much less polished than I want to hear. I'm quite off the cuff. I'm still getting used to that. So come on and tell me I'm wrong in the chat when it's live. If I can make that work. Okay. Anyway, apart from that, if you're also a Patreon, or you should remember, you get your name read out at the end of each video, like Dan Shaped Blob, and Caddick, and Achu, Graffitia, Ekachu, Jonah Fart 2, Cat, read this fart noise out. Uncast Shadow of a Southern Myth, Rain, Michael McGrotty, Will, Alexandra Barnes, Reesnet, Ken Sword, Andrew Steele, Georgie, Carlito Del Mazzotti, Anna Nicholson, Dungeon Slime, Naomi Gorman, Melody, Ben Norman, Brooke Linnet, Heidi Law, Transform and Function, Cara Patching, Mattia 98, Lilith Dawn, Spin Noir, Victor Lufgren, Gilda the Dragon, A Slice of Cake, Rue, Buried Elk, Ewan Bennett, Mautiam, Gina Service, You Are Made of Stupid, Tomo, Melissa Jackson, Rena Pruzia Stuff, Minstrel of Course, Jeffrey On, Tom the Not Quite So Brave of Sir Lancelot, Elafar, Truquoy, Ariella Proquire, Robin Thomas, Emily Eisenberg, Garlic Escape, Kirby, No Sparkling Heart, Corey, Gianna J, Mighty than the Sword, Carolyn, Imogen Q, Luciano, Frias Andrade, Adam, Harry, Endog 191, Cav, Quesadilla, Tortilla Azul, Leron, Adam Lees, Daniel Nevels, No Not That Paul, MB, Wandering Wonder, Lex Phoenix, Enter Kudizits, Mira D, Jade Senior, Boa Ea, Jane W, Thorngill, Deborah Laboon, Zillas Athenaeum, Vince Whitaker, Amelia Set, J, Frank McManus, Susan Foster, Helen Ariel, Zero Whiskey, Ali Catgirl, John N, Lloyd Luciente, Jason Cribbett, Raven Tempest, Shield Daden, Robin Podolsky, Nightlight Plushy Jesus, Casual Observer, Manti Ray, Courtney Bermack, Sleepy Slug, Soma Piglet, Brain Douche, Artie Wolf, Deanna McMillan, Karen Regalado, Alexandra Lilly, Howard Lott, Robert McCallan, Sabrina Wade, Montana Schmidt-Bauer, Zach Beavan, Meow Meowski, Kamuvi, Eva Kebab, Marty Hunt, Jane Luciferian, Melissa Allen, Ataraxis Build Things, and Sarah Francesca Smith. Thank you all so much. Oh my god, the toy fell down. Oh. Thank you for watching and listening and all of that stuff that you have to do to pay attention to this. I love you. Happy Pride. Help a trad out if you can. It is Pride, and I would like to not be in debt anymore. That would be cool. Also, you, Pride, do nice things for yourself. Be nice for yourself. Treat yourself kindly. All that good stuff. Make out with a stranger if that's your thing, or don't, because stranger danger. Make out with someone who you actually like. Okay, I'm not going to be held liable for any of this. I'm going to need to go. All right, bye-bye.
He's a massive guy. This big, powerful guy. Big guy.
Big guy. Big guy. He's your big guy in town, folks. Big guy. Strong, tough. Strong man, big, tough guy. This is a big, tough guy.
Massive, big guy.
Big, tough guy.
Massive, big guy.
Big, tough guy.